Hey, I just wanted to share this. I was just listening to my favorite podcast, and it's actually a podcast that seriously changed my life. And so I wanted to talk about it. It's called the Comeback Podcast. And many of you maybe have listened to it. That's bugging me. Or heard it. But yeah, I guess I'll start at the beginning. This podcast started about 2 years ago, and I started listening to it soon after it came out. And the girl that started it, her name's Ashley Stone, and she is a former, I can take off my seatbelt too. She's a former drug addict, heroin addict, and if you look at her, like, you can't tell. She's got a beautiful family. She's completely turned her life around because of this podcast. But I just want to talk about how much it helped me and why. So when I started listening to this podcast, the first episode, she talks about how she was a drug addict and how she came back to the church. And then one of the next episodes is someone named Cheryl, who her podcast was really important for my journey because for one thing, she was talking about how she had been adopted when she was young to a family, and she had gone through a lot of abuse, and she swore throughout the podcast, and honestly, the swearing was so good for me. I don't know if it's the perfectionism, the OCD, the scrupulosity, or if those are all the same thing, I don't know, that was eating at me, but I just kept feeling like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to be a member. I wasn't good enough to go to church because I did swear, because my family didn't look like a typical Mormon family, because I was just a hot mess in every way you can imagine, because I wasn't doing the things that I had been taught to do. And so these episodes, just, I related so much because these people were in such dark places, and I thought, well, if they can be in the church, then I can be in the church too, with my messy, dysfunctional, whatever is going on in my life. And I just love this podcast because there's so many different stories that I've related to in little different ways. I just listened to one, like I said, and I'm going to an event that they're holding. I'm so excited about it. But it's really, really changed my perspective on the church and my thinking of what being a church member looks like. And you never know what someone's been through to come back to the gospel, or why someone has left the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I just love it. It's helped me in so many ways. It's helped me think about things in a more, like, the gospel is not black and white. It is so gray. And what I mean by that is we're not supposed to look a certain way. We're not supposed to have a certain type of family. We're not supposed to fit into a certain box to be a member, but we can be so diverse and bring our talents and our strengths to the gospel. And I just truly believe the gospel is for everyone. And if you're struggling in staying in the LDS church, I encourage you to listen to this podcast. Or if you're just struggling in general, I encourage you to listen to it. Really, anyone I think could benefit from this podcast. It was so inspired, and I'm so grateful for this podcast in my life. It just helped me get out of this perfectionism mentality and know that, like, I was so broken, but I was so accepted by God, and still am. And if you are broken and you feel like you don't fit in, that's not the truth. You fit in, and God accepts you as you are, and He wants to help you. And I just pray that you hold on until you see and feel His love.